Yeah.
Okay.
Moving right ahead, I know that some people are outside, but we had our banquet last night and we had an award ceremony, and I forgot one award. So I want to take this opportunity right now to present our Director of University Rover Challenge with an award for 4 years of service to this competition. If you could please put your hands together for Kevin Sloan. For his tireless dedication, time, and great effort to making the University Rover Challenge an international stellar competition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucinda. And are you expecting a speech of some sort now, perhaps for the next hour?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, I guess that's a wonderful lead-in. Thank you. Last night we had a chance to honor Oregon State here, and they're going to be joining me for the second half of this. 2010 University Rover Challenge, sponsored by Task. As Lucinda said, this was our 4th year. It's really a great year. Some background for those of you that aren't familiar with URC. It's an extension of the Mars Society's Mars Desert Research Station located in Hanksville, Utah. There's been a tremendous amount of invaluable research that's been done there about a lot of the human factors associated with Mars exploration. And a number of the crews, some crews I was on back in seasons 3 and 5, we're focusing on how astronauts are going to work with rovers in the field. It's kind of one of the age-old questions of, do we go with the human approach to exploration or the robotic approach to exploration? And I think as time has progressed, we've seen that mindset shift, and we realize that right now robots are there and doing absolutely tremendous work, but when astronauts go, the astronauts are going to have a lot of requirements on their hands. There are going to be a lot of demands on their time, physical demands as well, in addition to all the science tasking. So this is an area where robots can really come in handy and actually work alongside the astronauts to provide some great benefits and make their lives a little bit easier. That was really the origin of the University Rover Challenge. And with that, realized that there is an unbelievable wealth of talent with university students, even with undergraduates all the way up through graduates and doctoral students, working on some just absolutely amazing things. Robotics industry is in a very exciting place and has been for a while now. And so there are a lot of great opportunities afforded. So URC, we're really trying to build on that, and we've been able to see some pretty exciting things. Those of you that were at the 2006 convention, we announced URC for the first time as a program to engage ambitious students and ambitious research. So not just taking an extension of a textbook, but putting students probably in situations that they don't have a lot of experience, working at the systems level, forming teams, and actually operating full organizations, dealing with a lot of organizational management issues. So a lot of things that we've tried to instill into URC. So it's not just applying equations or buying parts off the shelf that are ready to fly. Trying to really stretch the minds of the engineering and science students. So the challenge, I think as I've already alluded to, is to design and build the next generation of Mars rovers to work alongside the future astronauts. And of course we know the prize by now. Glad to have Oregon State here, and perhaps the biggest thing of all, the year's worth of bragging rights. 2010 University Rover Challenge, it was our largest field to date. We had teams from 4 countries on 2 continents, 7 teams from the US, 2 from Canada, 2 from Poland, 1 from Italy. I do have to give a shout out here to the Polish teams and really the Polish chapter of the Mars Society. They have gotten incredibly excited about this, and Poland in general, apparently if you're a college student working on robotics in Poland, you are the equivalent of a rock star, almost at a Bono-like stature. These guys get unbelievable publicity. And actually, last year in 2009, we had our first Polish team enter, the Warsaw University of Technology. And last summer, it was actually, Lucinda was at the European convention and met some of the Polish Mars Society members out there, and they pointed out to her a news clip from the official Polish national news network, the version of CNN. They were doing a special around the 40th anniversary of Apollo. And this 30-minute long special, it started off, the first half was everything about what happened 40 years ago, everything that was great about Apollo. The second half was their URC team, and showing the clips of them out in the field and interviewing the students. So to realize that they had reached that level of notoriety in Poland was truly astounding. It's really a great achievement of this competition, I think. Now these are the teams that were started working on it, but of course the hardest part of URC is working throughout the academic year. You have tight deadlines, you're dealing with heavy course loads. Remember, these are ambitious students, so they don't take anything easy on themselves. Just making it out there is the hard part. 7 of these teams were able to make it out there. We see a little bit of attrition every year. It's to be expected. But these 7 were strong enough to survive and make it out into the field. And this team right here, you'll see me referring to them later as the Magma team. They were a pair of universities from Poland that were working together. So URC 2010 took place in early June. There were 4 tasks that the teams were up against, and I'll talk about them in a little more detail. The equipment servicing task, site survey task, sample return task, and an emergency navigation task. Bottom one, perhaps better known as the astronaut rescue mission, which is, I think, always my personal favorite every year. But of course, first, you have to weigh in. So you can see a few of the rovers here as they're getting ready for their weigh-ins. Iowa State in the upper left is York University right here, and the 6-wheel guy right there is from the University of Waterloo. The weigh-in requirements, 50 kilograms is the cap that we set for the teams, and then they're allotted an additional 20 kilograms for additional modules. They're allowed to swap out different parts for different experiments. If they need a chemical sampling kit for some of the science tasks, they can swap that in and perhaps pull off an arm that might be used for construction purposes in the equipment servicing task. But most importantly, only have 50 kilograms for any given competition configuration. All the teams came in, the majority of the teams came in right under the buffer, right in between 46 and 49.9999 kilograms, really trying to milk it. There were a couple of impressively light rovers. I think we're around there were 1 or 2 that were under 40 kilograms. We had at least one team that put their rover on the scale for the very first time at the weigh-in, and their jaws kind of hit the floor, and they started figuring out, okay, which cameras are heavy and probably superfluous? How few batteries can we get by on? Will this last 40 minutes if we pull that battery? So there was some last-minute reconfiguring that had to take place, throwing out batteries and other heavy hardware, but everyone did make the cut. No penalties for being overweight. So that the competition began. The equipment servicing task. For this, you can see a panel here. Teams had to navigate out to the panel, and it starts off, had to actually drive to the panel, obviously. But you can see a white sheet of paper here. And this could be a generator, it can be anything out in the field that breaks down, and instead of waiting for an astronaut in the HAB to go through the long process of putting on the spacesuit, going through the airlock, depressurizing, going out and working through this, if you have a rover that's already sitting on side, you have it on remote control, just fire it up and run it out. But every piece of equipment is different. Sometimes you have to look up the instructions. Sometimes the instructions are literally just taped to the panel. So you have to go out there, you have to actually be able to use your rover to read the instructions, figure out what procedure you need to go through. Now you can't quite see it on here, but there are a number of switches, just standard light switches, the toggle switches, a couple of rocker button switches. There's a button in here, and also a series, these dangling wires here, power cords that the teams have to grasp and actually plug back in. There's a sequence here, they're all labeled with what they had to do. Teams had to work their way through. It's actually an incredibly challenging task, especially when you get to inserting the plug. This was something I knew was going to be a stretch goal for the teams, and in my opinion, I go to a lot of robotics conferences. I really try to follow what the state of the art is. This is really at the absolute cutting edge of robotics, of what you're able to do. So you can see Iowa State's run here, getting ready to go out into the field. And there's their rover heading out. And you see they have a pretty interesting two-track design there with independent suspensions. You can see the panel out in the distance there that they have to drive to. But of course, I mentioned just getting to the panel is hard.